Welcome to a glorious weekend and a legendary racing facility. Hi everybody, it is Speed World Challenge Racing for the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix, presented by Lala Motorsports at Watkins Glen International Raceway. We start off with the action in World Challenge GT. Hi everybody, happy 4th of July. I'm Greg Kramer, joined by Tom Natchew. Let's take a look at this legendary track. Tom?
Turn 1 is a 90, and it's been called the 90 for as long as Watkins Glen's been here. From the 90, it goes straight up the hill, flat out through here. If you're all alone, a little tough to do that side by side. The track used to go straight here, but now we've created the inner loop for some more interest and a bit more safety at the end of this long back straightaway. Now we start our trip down into the boot, this extremely fast downhill left-hander that takes you down into the toe of the boot. Heavy braking area here, and it's an uphill, very late apex. There's some passing that can be done at the end of this straightaway. If you come down to here, you have a very similar turn to turn 1, except that it goes uphill. This is the apex that never comes, a very, very long left-hander over the tunnel. There's a lot of Armco there. You've got to make sure to get it right. Through that fast NASCAR left, and then through turn 11 and back onto the front straightaway.
Round number 5 here at Watkins Glen International. Brandon Davis sits on the pole. Eric Curran, James Sofronis, Dino Crescentini, and Jason Daskalos. This is the official coin. Brandon, I want you to toss it, call it in the air. If you win the toss, the grid stays the same. If you lose, you're in 5th place. Jason's in 1st. Go ahead, sir. The call was tails. It landed heads. That means Jason Daskalos sits on the pole. Jason, after Mosport, how are you feeling right this minute?
I feel bad for Brandon, but not all that bad. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say. Maybe Brandon should start qualifying 5th, and maybe he'll be 1st. But I feel great about it. I mean, it's obviously, starting from the pole's nice, but I don't want to earn it. I don't want to earn it like this.
Jason Daskalos will now sit in the pole for round number 5 at Watkins Glen.
Thank you to all of our friends at Optima Batteries and Lala Motorsports. Gentlemen, start your engine!
Wow, young Lala's got some pipes, and she had to, because the pipes on these V8s, V10s, flat 6s, and straight line 5s are coming to life here as we are getting ready to go racing. And Tom, I think we are in for a cracker.
You certainly are, Greg. Watkins Glen International is a place where everybody wants to come. It's fantastic to share this weekend with the Indy cars. In this particular race, we've got 4 different manufacturers in the top 5 as we start off the round. And as we look at the chase cams that we've got here this weekend, top left is Tony Rivera. Then we see the number 30 car of Eric Curran, the Mustang of Brandon Davis, bottom left, and then of course, the K-Pax Racing Volvo with Randy Popst.
Welcome back to the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix, presented by Lala Motorsports. We are ready for the 5th round of GT. Let's take a look at the starting lineup. Now remember, it is different than qualifying because of that coin toss. Brandon Davis got his 2nd consecutive fast qualifier, but he'll start 5th. As a result, Jason Daskalos, for the 2nd straight race benefit, starts up front. Crescentini alongside as he returns to the championship after his big crash at Long Beach. Then team owner James Sofronis on the 2nd row, along with Eric Curran. And then Davis, Randy Popst, and Andy Pilgrim are in the 6th and 7th starting spots. Starting 8th, it'll be Sonny Whelan, then Tony Rivera, then Gunter Schaldock, and then Bill Ziegler. And we are ready for the start. When the red lights go out, we go racing. They're on. The field is clear. We're ready. We're away. Oh, a great start by Dino Crescentini, but look at the start from the 2nd row. Huge. James Sofronis, that Global Motorsports Group Porsche, came from that 2nd row right by the inside, by the entire front row, and he leads out of turn 1 and climbing the S's, and he's got a teammate running behind him. Boy, that's the way you like it to work. And you notice right there, Tom, Andy Pilgrim, very gentle on the start, huge transmission issues in qualifying. He was very leery about being able to start, said he was going to be conservative. Boy, was he.
All-wheel drive is a distinctive advantage when you are in the standing start process. However, if you're trying to take care of your gearbox, you just have to be a little bit more gentle with it. And Andy Pilgrim's a professional. He knows how to take care of the equipment. We move back to the start here. You see Tony Rivera absolutely blowing by Andy Pilgrim as he tiptoes off from the start, and you start to see that action up front.
Boy, for Tony Rivera, their big issue this year has just been not getting things dialed in qualifying. Haven't hit the setup for that. They usually come good in the race, so we'll hopefully see him march toward the front just a little bit. And Daskalos in the Daskalos Developments Viper, after getting his second straight beneficiary of the coin flip and starting up front, couldn't quite make that work into an early lead. Still in the top three, though, but boy, Eric Kern now in that Whelen Engineering Corvette all over the back of Daskalos. In fact, Daskalos has to defend. Kern going to show him the nose. Not quite there at this point, but Daskalos is feeling some serious heat.
Meanwhile, while these guys battle, you can see the two Porsches from Global Motorsports Group, the GMG Porsche, the Stop Text Brake Porsche. They're using that as an opportunity to try to break away and get away from what they consider to be a big threat this weekend, that Whelen Engineering Corvette of Eric Kern.
Wait, Randy Popes was able to also get around Brandon Davis, so nice job there. They too had some tranny issues, but they think they've got that one at least fairly sorted, and he was obviously a bit more aggressive with it, able to get around Brandon Davis. And now, well, what a great look this is here down this legendary front straight, fall away down into that 90-degree turn one. That's a very tricky corner with that fall-away braking zone, isn't it?
It's always been tricky. The 90's always been a challenge to all sports car drivers and especially cup car drivers, and they've paved the outside of it. The chief steward has said you get four wheels over that and you're going to come in if you make up a place. So as we get on board here with the number 97 car, you see just how fast you go up this hill. Nothing wrong with Huffaker horsepower if you're going up the hill. Now challenging Randy Popst. This is Brandon Davis trying to go down the outside, and will he make it stick? Well, at least he does for now, Greg.
Yeah, if he didn't, then Popst is way off in the dirt. I think Randy realized that one was done and backed out. Oh, Daskalos just slipped a little bit wide, and Eric Kern, being able to make that line work a little tighter on the exit, was able to get down underneath, and that Viper just stepped out for a second, and Kern pounced.
Daskalos makes a little error, and capitalizing on that is Eric Kern. Now he can set out after these two Porsches, and by now they're aware of it. They've noticed that red Corvette nose is in their mirrors, and now they have to bear down and see if they can get away from him.
Well, this was a race last year that really started off Kern's season in a way. He'd had just a slew of mechanical problems, came in here, got a fourth, got his first top five, and that propelled him onto a much better second half. He loves this track, and he is getting racy. The problem for him is, oh, big mover attempt down the inside. Not quite there. Randy Popes, we've seen this before, Tom. When it's in the twisty bits, that Volvo is just on rails. It's just awesome. But you get into the straight parts where horsepower comes into play, and that Mustang has them covered a little bit. But as I was going to say about these Porsches, one, they're a couple hundred pounds lighter than the Vets, which means they're easier on tires as you get deeper into the race. And Kern's a little bit concerned about that. And Crescentini showing the nose big time to team owner James Safronis down into turn one. That StopTech Porsche, one of the Global Motorsports team cars, looking awfully good early.
Well, you're allowed one move to prevent a pass between teammates. That move was just a little bit on the rude side, I would say, by James Safronis, but what the heck, he's leading. He's got a big weekend going. You know, just a few days ago, his first daughter, Chloe, was born. That's why you see those pink marks on the front of his car. And so congratulations to the Safronis family and their new addition, Chloe, Greg.
Yeah, what a great story that is. James just beaming, and I think a little conflicted about being here, knowing that that family is back at home, but he gets to go back to them certainly, and would love to do it with a strong finish as a little bit of a extra reward, if you will. But that little bit of dicing between those two Global Motorsports Group teammates allowed Kern to actually take a little bit of a look at Crescentini. Crescentini able to defend, but you notice he's just shallowing up some of those entries a little bit to try and dissuade anybody from coming up underneath him.
Here's Tony Rivera at work in the office of that Taxmaster Racing Porsche. As you can see, he's a very, very cool and calm guy. They've been working on setup, as you talked about, Greg, and they were having a push problem. And just before the race, he says, we fixed the push problem. Now it's a little bit loose. We can tune on a loose car. He was very, very excited about his chances for the Watkins Glen round.
Well, and he would love to come back after getting that win in his debut race in the season opener at Sebring, but he's got a lot of work to do. Well, Tom, naturally, you talked about the points battles, certainly in the manufacturers, but also in the Drivers' Championship. Consistency pays. Brandon Davis, the only guy with nothing but podiums, he's leading.
Well, he finds himself in this position after having been Rookie of the Year in one of the real-time racing touring cars. Last year was a bit of a development year with the the Mustang with Huffaker horsepower. Remember, they took this car with a Ford GT engine and transaxle, introduced a drive shaft, and most of the development driving was done by his father, Mike. Now he finds himself in a position to contend for the championship. This is really, really great news for the ACS team. We'll come back in just a moment's time.
Welcome back to the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix presented by Lala Motorsports. World Challenge GT Round 5 action, and it is a good one that is unfolding. There's a look at Andy Pilgrim and the K-Pax 3R Racing Volvo. Again, talking about the tranny issues they've been dealing with. He has been very conservative. Not so much up front. Look at that. Dino Crescentini, a brilliant move into the inner loop, down the inside. And I think James Sofronis realized that he was coming and was not going to be denied and let him slip through. And Sofronis pretty wise, knowing that's a teammate. You don't want to take out both cars by trying to over-defend. And ends up actually doing a nice little job of dissuading Kern from trying to follow through. Kern gives it a big look here, though, Tom.
Curran tries the inside on his way down to the toe of the boot. For now, he's got the advantage, and James Sofronis is there, but not able to respond. Meanwhile, that black Mustang of Brandon Davis all over the back of James Sofronis. James has to gather himself up here. He's already lost 2 spots, and it's easy to lose momentum, especially when you're dealing with these high horsepower Mustangs. And that car, the Dodge Viper. Randy Pobst is being an opportunist. He's going to take a look down the inside of this right-hander, denied by the Jason Daskalo's car. But Randy Pobst is racier than we thought he was going to be, and that's exactly what you think.
Oh, now he really just throws it down the inside, Tom. Did it make it work? Let's see. And he gives a little room, Daskalos along the outside, but now Pobst able to take the position away. And interestingly for the K-Pax team, the question is, do they have a shot at the championship after a rough start at Sebring? Well, Andy Pilgrim says, you bet.
We definitely have a good shot. We're in 3rd place in the championship. We're halfway through the year, so we've definitely got a good shot. But I'm such a realist. I don't get confident about things for the future. I just go corner by corner, race by race. That's the way I've always done it. A 24-hour race is never over until 23 hours, 59 minutes ends, and it's 24 hours. I've won too many long races, and I've been things have happened on the last laps of races in my career. I guess I'm just so old that all that stuff's a reality, and so I stay with the reality. I'm confident. We're there. We're in good position, but we don't know for sure.
Well, one of his highlights has always been conservative when it comes to things like that, but not on the racetrack. He is a great driver and going toward the front, as is Eric Kern. He has got all over the back of Dino Crescentini here in the battle for the lead here. Crescentini, the Stop Tech Brakes, Global Motorsports Group, Porsche, Eric Kern, the Wheel and Engineering Corvette, looks to the inside, gets the nose there, but not quite enough. And Crescentini, boy, side by side, boy, great World Challenge action here, Tom. And that gives Crescentini the inside. And for a moment there, looked like Sofronis might come back.
You know, you're always vulnerable when you're chasing somebody like Crescentini. You're having to move your car around. Crescentini, for his part, doing a fabulous job here at Watkins Glen. It's all about where you place your car to make it difficult to pass. There goes James Sofronis by again. James Sofronis, as they come out of the boot, able to carry the momentum up the hill. And we just said that. Eric Kern leaves himself vulnerable. James Sofronis takes advantage of it.
Well, I'll tell you, legendary Porsche brakes augmented by great Stop Tech brakes on that team. And Sofronis able to get the job done. And now Kern has to go back on the attack mode at this point. And I'm sure Dino, after seeing that red nose of that Whelen Corvette so close, able to look in the mirror and see that friendly blue of the Sofronis Global Motorsports Group Porsche, appreciative of that as well. But problem is, that little bit of dicing has allowed this lead group to compress. I mean, there's 6 cars you can cover by the proverbial blanket, including the Daskalos Developments Viper. And what a great weekend they had at Mosport.
I always knew we had it in us to be on the podium. I didn't think a win would come that soon. Obviously, we're thrilled and pleased with that. We've been working hard. I mean, this is my 3rd year into the series, and it was a learning curve. I mean, when you got the best, you know, Andy Pilgrim, Randy, I mean, some of the best drivers here in World Challenge, it was definitely a task to get up to their speed, and being a small team and being able to do and, you know, fulfill that accomplishment was definitely wonderful.
Oh, your first win is always special, and Tom, at a track like Mossport, a driver's track, to be able to fend off the people that were chasing him, that says a lot.
You make yourself a list of drivers who have won at Mossport, and Jason Daskalos can write himself into that list. That is a remarkable list, including some of your colleagues, Dorsey Schrader, Calvin Fish, I think, has won there in an Atlantic car. But to add yourself to a list of winners at Mossport, the most manly track in North America, that's a big accomplishment for Jason Daskalos.
Oh, it surely is. And this track, not exactly for the faint of heart either. And Curran looking to the inside of Safronis. Oh, and they hit just a little bit there. Curran got the nose alongside Safronis. I don't think realized he was that close. Just started his turn in. They just touched enough. It'll loosen Safronis up, and Curran goes through. I don't know, Tom, what's your opinion as we take a look at the replay?
Well, let's see who hits who here. Now, you can either punt a guy, or you can allow him to be hit. He put his nose in there, and he knew that the 14 car had to come down. He came down, and just a little nudge, enough to get by. James Safronis is the loser in that little battle, but he hasn't lost much ground. He never lifted. Meanwhile, the number 30 car goes after Dino Crescentini one more time.
And let's take one more look at it from that first perspective. Slowed down a little bit. You can see it's a late move, but he's got to the inside. But then Safronis starts to turn in, and he's on line. Racing incident? It appears so. Welcome back to World Challenge GT Round 5, part of the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix, presented by Lala Motorsports at the Glen. Some great racing, a little bit outside of that battle for the top 3 in the podium. Oh, and a beautiful move there as Andy Pilgrim, apparently, Tom, starting to feel pretty confident that that rebuilt transmission is going to work and has taken the fight to and past Tony Rivera as we watch Dino Crescentini, who's opening it up front. That Capex team, I'll tell you, the first year, development year for this program with these new Volvos, yes, they've had their problems, but they have worked some amazing stuff.
And he sees an opportunity on the front straightaway, catches a bit of a draft off the back of the Taxmasters Porsche, and a classic move down into the 90, puts Tony Rivera in a position that he's got absolutely nothing to say about it, and he was talking about his points battle before, and this gives him another opportunity to get that much closer to Brandon Davis. Let's go back to the front with Dino Crescentini now.
And speaking of teams who have worked some miracles, how about Global Motorsports Group? Keep in mind, after the Long Beach crash Crescentini had, they haven't been back. This car was actually, after they got it back, absolutely a bare tub only 4 weeks ago. This team have put together an incredible rebuild effort. And Todd Ketchum and that incredible Global Motorsports Group, first race back this season for that car after the crash, and it's leading. Pretty amazing stuff.
And the first 5 still reasonably close together. Porsche, Corvette, Porsche, then the Mustang, then the Volvo. So we've got some variety still up front, but Dino Crescentini starting to feel a little bit more confident about Watkins Glen. Greg, look at him toss that car around. He's just having fun.
Yeah, he's feeling it. There's no question of that. And what a great story it will be if he's able to come back after that crash as we start our last lap and pick up a win. And if he does, Tom, it's a great story in the making. In the first 4 rounds, we've had 4 different winners. Can he make it 5 different winners? It's very possible, although you see Kern has closed it right back up again, very, very close. And Brandon Davis now starting to feel the heat from Randy Popst in the K-Pax Volvo. There is your lead battle, and Curran very close, but that heat from Popst is of the humid variety. There is look at that moisture on the windshield. One has to think there is some sort, maybe an overheating issue in that car, but he went by Davis like he's tied to a post. Davis in some sort of problem. He suddenly slowed, moved offline.
Yeah, there's a throttle problem, obviously, in that car. Davis not able to keep up. And, of course, to all of the members of the Volvo Association of North America, I once said this was a 4-cylinder turbo. I apologize. That K-Pax car, of course, is a 5-cylinder turbo.
And a very quick one indeed. But right now, the battle is mano a mano for the win. Safronis has the best seat to watch it. Curran is closing. He is now down to within a couple of car lengths, and they are into this long run. Uphill, horsepower might just play, but then it falls away into braking zone. That is the purview of the Porsche, and things stay fairly static. What a great mix.
Watch Eric Curran start to develop a head of steam using the late apex, using all of the racetrack. Look at how he's squaring off this corner so that he can get a run, get the power down early. Eric Curran is coming on the way to the last turn here. Dino Crescentini on the flat left-hander, and flat out. Both of these cars absolutely flat out. Curran using all of the road. He's going to try to do it at the start-finish line. And remember, the start-finish line has been moved down track. This could be a classic finish, almost side by side over the start-finish line, and no! Dino Crescentini hangs on, Greg.
What a finish, Crescentini. It was a nervous one, and the margin of victory, .255, a new record here at the Glen. The old one over a second. It has been destroyed. Let's take a look at the results. Crescentini over Curran. Safronis completes the podium. Popeston fourth, and Andy Pilgrim up into fifth. And the points now after 5 rounds. Safronis and Rivera, they swap. Great weekend for Safronis, and Porsche opens it up a little bit over Ford, but the man of the moment, Dino Crescentini.
Oh man, you know what? The GMG Stop Tech team prepped me a great car right out of the box. I mean, this is a car that actually wrecked in Long Beach. They obviously screwed it back together better than I could have imagined, and I really owe it to them. But man, that was freaking fun. Proud for the team, and thank you.
An absolute thriller in GT, and when we come back, the heat should stay right up there. It's touring cars.
From your friends at Optima Batteries and Lala Motorsports, gentlemen, start your engines.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix presented by Lala Motorsports on this Independence Day weekend. We're ready for the 5th round of World Challenge Touring Car Racing, and of course, that means it all starts with one of those great new stories that's unfolding in the championship this year, the coin toss. Let's get down to Tom Natchew.
Here we are at Watkins Glen International Raceway. Touring car is over. Seth Thomas sits in the pole, followed by Charles Espenlaub in the Mazda, followed by Nick Assay and Pierre Kleinubing, and in the catbird seat, Andrew Aquilante. Mr. Thomas, flip the coin, call it in the air. If you win, you keep the pole. If you lose, you go to 5th place, and Andrew Aquilante goes to pole. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Give it a flip.
We'll go tails.
He calls tails, and tails it is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Seth. Step over here.
Oh yeah, the Gear Inch BMW, Pirelli World BMW just did great all weekend. And you know, this to get the pole is really because of James. That, you know, he gave me a great tow. He's been a great teammate, and that's why I'm here. You know, was able to flip the coin. Luckily, we won it, and you know, BMW starting on the front row here. That's great redemption from last year. 20 laps to go before you can put up another win in the column. How are you feeling about that? Well, the first win's out of the way. The second one, they say, is the easiest, so I feel pretty good about it.
Seth Thomas on the pole here at Watkins Glen International Raceway.
Well, a very relieved Seth Thomas. I think also thanking those lucky stars that the coin toss worked out. Boy, talk about some pressure. So his first ever World Challenge pole, and he gets to keep it and start up front with Charles Espenlaub, who is on form in that tri-point Mazda alongside. Nick Assayan, also a career best qualifying ever in that second row with the 4-time champ Pierre Kleinubing alongside. Then Andrew Aquilani, James Clay, Cunningham, Saney, Whitmer. Well, I'll tell you, just some great names here. Red lights are on when they go out. Touring cars racing for round 5, and we are racing. Lights out, and the 5th round of the Touring Car Championship is underway, and a great start at the front as we watch the field streaming through, and it was Assayan who was able to sneak through from that second row, Tom, and now ends up right in that second spot. Seth Thomas looking in the mirrors and grinning bigger than ever.
Theoretically, all-wheel drive is best, but rear-wheel drive in these BMWs does a great job of leaving the grid as well. Speaking of all-wheel drive, we jump in with Andrew Aquilante as he hunts down Charles Espenlaub. On the way up the hill, you can see Charles Espenlaub already setting up on the inside, so if Andrew Aquilante wants this, he's going to have to go around the outside. How likely is that happening with a guy like Charles Espenlaub? And we see James Clay coming through as well, kind of on his tiptoes as he kind of slides through there. Aquilani stays calm, gets a run into the corner, and keeps James Clay at bay, but not for long. Look how loose James Clay is. Aquilani slides wide, and one of the real-time cars comes through, Greg.
Yeah, Pierre Kleinubing, he is going to take advantage of that. Even though he never has a win here in his history in World Challenge competition, he has a slew of podiums, and you know that just makes you hungry when you're close but no cigar. So obviously Kleinubing not going to waste any time. And look at that ultra aggressive move by Espenlaub. down in the toe of the boot, dives to the inside, demotes Essayan to second spot. Essayan now trying to use the torque of that BMW to get the run out of that, and heading now toward what they call the heel of the boot. They are two abreast, not quite enough. Essayan swings to the other side, trying to get a little bit better exit there, and all of that dicing unfolds in front of Pierre Kleinubing, ever the opportunist. And Tom, as we take a look at the replay, it was a pretty impressive move.
On board with Pierre Kleinubing, you see Andrew Aquilante using some patience, not wanting to crash in the first lap, and then James Clay takes advantage of it. Andrew Aquilante checks up so he doesn't run into James Clay. James Clay has to check up so that he doesn't run into anybody else, and Kleinubing drives through.
Just an amazing move by Kleinubing, and of course he races for the real-time team, whose owner is Peter Cunningham, a 5-time champion, one of the veterans. He has been in some great scraps with a young rising star named Jason Saney.
You know, Jason's a tough cookie. He's a really nice guy out of the car, which makes it a little tougher in the car, but I'm sure he'll grind your mirror off if he gets the chance. But so far we've had real close racing and very respectful racing, so he's a great guy.
Well, this weekend it's he looks a little quicker, but I think I got something for him again. You know, just a dream come true to race against him. You know, was you know, a fan when he was winning races and standing over the fence watching, and to get to race with him wheel to wheel last year. We had some good side-by-side battles this year at Jersey. We had a great side-by-side battle. You know, I think I've got something for him if I can qualify up near the front. I think we've got good cars this weekend. We can maybe get a Mazda podium sweep.
Well, certainly, and Saney has already put together that huge win in New Jersey this year. I mean, he is for real, and it's that kind of new blood coming in and taking on the legends in this series that makes it so exciting. Speaking of which, look at this battle here as we are watching what's unfolding right behind Aquilani. That is Petey Cunningham and Jason Saney, and they have closed right up on Kleinubing, who is still trying to figure a way to get back around James Clay.
Well, Kleinubing is definitely got a problem in the rear of him as well, as Andrew Aqualante's got that extra horsepower. Kleinubing just throws his car in front of him to block in this very vulnerable passing zone. Wherever there's horsepower involved, this Subaru is going to be a player in the action, Greg.
Yeah, that flat 4 turbo, certainly when it spools up, is going to get the job done. And pretty good launch out of the corners with that all-wheel drive. And also tends to be a little bit abusive on tires sometimes, the all-wheel drive system. So there's a little bit of a compromise here. But what it makes for, and once again, you have to credit the SCCA rules makers for taking a wide variety of disparate cars and blending them into this type of close quarters racing action. It is just superb. And boy, look at that scrum right there behind Aquilani, as he has got Cunningham and Saney all over the back. And there's that horsepower you talked about, Tom.
There he comes. He goes blazing down the front straightaway. Now we jump inside.
Oh, what a huge dive, Tom.
Look at that. Jason Saney does a Hail Mary move and very nearly collects the number 35 car of Andrew Aquilani. Andrew Aquilani never saw it coming. That was definitely a Hail Mary move on Jason Saney's part.
You think that was a, oh yeah, break moment?
It could have been. Wow, that's big action here in touring cars. It kind of mixes up the order a little bit. Bad news for the Tri-Point Mazda team. Jason Saney goes all the way back into the clutches of Eric Foss. Meanwhile, the real-time guys are heating up with Kuno Whitmer and Peter Cunningham now starting to put on a show of their own.
And Eric Foss right behind them. There is the 43 of Toby Grahovic, another of the real-time Acuras, and having some great racing going. But that big dive bomb move by Saney, as you pointed out, really split things up just a little bit. And one of the nice things is right there, that is going to allow Pierre Kleinubing to not have to drive in his mirrors, and he is really focusing on trying to get back around Andrew Aquilani.
You talked about the evenness between these cars, and the credit to SCCA. This is a real clinic. All-wheel drive, turbocharged car versus a front-wheel drive front-engine car. You look at these two drivers, one with a world of experience. And you got to remember, Andrew Aquilante, although he drives like a veteran, he's only 21 years old. But the advantage is his father, Joe Aquilante, has been in wars in these production cars for quite a long time. And those guys spend a lot of time together. They drive up together, and Joe is always talking about patience. And it's a good thing, too. Andrew Aquilante is listening because he's driving the wheels off this thing.
But we go up a little further forward. Seth Thomas, speaking of driving the wheels off, that BMW stepping out, giving it a great run. And Charles Espenlaub, who had a tough start to the season, but it all came good at the most recent round at Mosport with a solid second place. He's in second again. Can he get to the front? We'll find out when we come back. Welcome back. Round 5, World Challenge Touring Cars, part of the Toyota Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix, presented by Lala Motorsports, and we've got a good one going for you. Here's a look at Eric Foss, who at Mosport was stunning in terms of his qualifying speed. Had some bad luck, a little bit of contact with Petey Cunningham, but this weekend it just hasn't quite been there for him, partly because he had a huge spin in qualifying, flat spotted the tires pretty bad, had to change them out, and that means he starts at the back, but he's not made a whole lot of progress at this point in time.
Well, look at the guys he's competing against,
Yeah.
and of course, you know, this is Watkins Glen. Very tough to get caught up here, but I'll tell you something, this kid can drive. Eric Foss is a star of the World Challenge Championship. He's just had a few niggly little problems. Remember, he had trouble launching on one. He had a couple of spins over the time, but the time that he is driving that car, he is as good as anybody else out here. Here's Andrew Aquilani taking another look down on James Clay. Greg, that's horsepower, and he's got it in the right spot for the inner loop.
Yeah, that worked beautifully. He was able to get halfway in front of Clay going into that inner loop, and that just really parks the guy that's getting past at that point, and Aquilani is through. Now the question is, can he hang on to it? And it looks pretty good at this point. Coming out of in the short track, it's just a continuing 180 high speed, but here they plummet down this hill into the boot, and he has got that move made. Meanwhile, up front, talking about moves, Thomas and Espenlaub have been able to shake a sand, and at least at this point are settling this amongst themselves. And I think Espenlaub, he made the comment earlier, Tom, he loved the fact that they combined both of the classes into a practice session, and it was a much longer session because he said it allowed you to get in and out of the pits, really throw some changes on the car, and he's got a good one.
He really does, and the Tri-Point Engineering team is a crack team. This is a factory Mazda team. They've got his engineer and his mechanics are the best in the business, or at least equal to the best in the business. Given the opportunity to set up the car, Charles Espenlaub is one of the true masters. Nick Kasayan starting to get back into it. You know, Watkins Glen's one of these racetracks that if you can be by yourself, you can start to dial it up, and Nick Kasayan is driving his way back in to contention for second place. Meanwhile, Espenlaub on these Toyota tires, production tires on production cars. I've always said that's the way it ought to be. They're really coming into their own, and you can see Espenlaub starting to get a really great drive off the corner.
And Nick Kasayan having a great run as well. And as we talked about, a career-best qualifying effort, maybe on his way to a race finish. We hop on board with Pierre Kleinhubing. Boy, and talk about drives off corners. That was the 36 at James Clay. He's got the inside to torque of that BMW, really playing, coming out of the last turn. And Peter Cunningham, boy, just following him through, using the blocking back to great effect. Got Pierre sort of frozen on the outside of turn 1, and he lost 2 spots, Tom.
I love it when you use football analogies in auto racing, Greg. Fantastic. You had the pick there as well. Pierre Kleinhubing fell kind of victim to the BMW, and once again, the opportunist, Peter Cunningham, says, I'll have that too, thanks very much. I wonder how Kleinhubing's feeling right now about the boss putting one on him.
You know, and you have to be amazed, I think. You take a look at Peter Cunningham and Pierre Kleinhubing, 9 championships between them in the history of World Challenge, and neither of them have a win ever here at Watkins Glen in World Challenge. They've got them in other forms of racing, but not World Challenge. They've got podiums. Peter Cunningham was second here last year, but no wins. You know these guys are hungry.
You know, the real-time racing team is absolutely fabulous any way you want to look at it. The way they present themselves, the way they race on the track, or if you ever make it out to a World Challenge race, ladies and gentlemen, make sure your first stop is the World Challenge trailer at the paddock. You'll find them friendly, easy to get along with, and if you want to get up close and personal with these cars, they're the first team to say, you know, buy your leave, just join us and have a little fun with us. It's a great, great racing team, and it's amazing that a win here at Watkins Glen has eluded them.
Yeah, it truly is. And one of the things about that real-time team is it is as professional as it gets. They simply chose World Challenge because they like this format. They think it's the most exciting, close-fought racing. And as we're watching, there's good reason for that. But no matter where they would have gone, they would have been one of the top teams in the program. That is their work ethic, and that is their operating motivation, really. And both of them right now, a little miffed at James Clay getting by him, and they are going to do everything they can to try and get back. As a matter of fact, Petey trying the outside in, trying to get that drive off of the corner and carry the momentum. The problem is, right about there, that torque of that BMW, it just gets that little bit of a drive, and you can see he opens it up by about a car length before they get down to the braking zone. But does Clay know they're there? You bet. You don't drive into the middle of turn one unless you're defending.
James Clay still defending, mind you, as he goes wide off of turn one using that pavement.
Oh, look at that!
There it is. You know, every pass on the uphill starts in the 90. You get more momentum down the straightaway. You carry it. Now, James Clay is ganged up on by the real-time squad. He's the meat in the sandwich now. And Kuno Whitmer now taking a look down the inside.
Well, and Clay just gave us a classic example of fast in, slow out. He squared up a little bit trying to defend going in, but ran way wide, had to get out of it, and got absolutely freight trained. And Whitmer, as you said now, glued to the back. And Saney, in that tri-point entry, teammate to Espenlaub, is right in the hunt as well as they come in. Saney struggling a little bit with setup in qualifying, and as a result started further back than he normally might, and just hasn't been able to get through. And Tom, you mentioned it before. Look at the caliber of drivers and teams that you've got to race with, even deep in the pack.
It's just absolutely amazing. World Challenge has always been like this. You talk about old racing audages, and this is from the lips of Peter Cunningham recently. If you're going to do well at Watkins Glen, you need two things, Greg Kramer. You need mentum and momentum.
And Petey would know. He's been chasing them both for a long time with an absolutely phenomenal career. There's a good look at the five-time champ, one of only two in World Challenge competition. Then Kleinhubing right behind him at this point as they work down through this fascinating piece of the long version of Watkins Glen. And it is such a great track. Now they make that left-hander rejoining the high-speed short course. And high speed is right. Boy, this next turn in particular, Tom, is a breathtaker, isn't it?
You know, if you do this on a lapping day all by yourself, your heart is in your throat. You think you can do it flat. I think the car will do it flat, but in 1,000 laps of Watkins Glen, I've never had the guts to go flat out through there in anything I've ever driven.
Hopping on board again with Andrew Aquilani, and got a great run out of that 11th and final turn once again in that Subaru, the all-wheel drive, and just drives right on by, picks the spot up. Andrew Aquilani now up into third.
Andrew Aquilani showing the patience that we talked about a little earlier. He and his father Joe have talked about. Andrew Aquilani in third place. Will come back in just a moment's time.
We are back to legendary Watkins Glen Independence Day weekend. Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix presented by Lala Motorsports. Round 5 of the touring cars, and a battle for independence is being waged. This one is for that top step of the podium. And look at Andrew Aquilani. He has not only, as we went to break, remember, he had passed Nick Asayan. He not only has gone around Asayan, he has driven down and closed right up within a few car lengths now, throwing that Subaru over the curbs, into the dirt, whatever it takes to try and run down this lead duo. And he is going after it, Tom. What a great piece of driving by this young 21-year-old national champion.
Especially when you take into consideration the fact that, and I don't even know if you know this, Greg, that car has an OEM gearbox in it. Your standard World Challenge touring car has got a... huge sideways right there, Tom. Beautiful save. Toby Grahovic in the battle for 10th, trying to hang on in front of Eric Foss. And, I'll tell you what, that was a superb save by that driver. It was unbelievable. I'm glad you broke in there. I was talking about sequential gearbox as opposed to OEM gearbox. He's actually making the shifts in that car. Let's keep going with racing, Greg.
Just some incredible stuff. Kuno Whitmer now trying the outside in, inside out, now alongside James Clay, who has been in the thick of the battles. Watch to his right. You just saw that little bit of a red and orange and white and blue nose. It's through.
It's blue because part of the paint from James Clay's car's on there. They actually touched it, the first part of that, just coming out of the toe of the boot. James Clay falls victim not once, but twice. Jason Saney gets through. If you check up for just a second here at Watkins Glen, you lose that momentum and bad things start happening to you.
Petey said it. Momentum and momentum, and you lose it here, you are going to get hurt in terms of position, and Clay has lost a couple more. And Tom, we saw that great save by Toby Grahovic. Let's take a look at the replay, and there was a reason for it.
Well, Grahovic is being pushed here, and he's got to do something to stay ahead of the 75 car of Eric Foss. And holy smoke, what a catch. When you see smoke coming off the rear tires of a touring car, that's going right to the edge.
especially a front drive touring car. That's not wheel spin from power. That is being given that little bit of a tink and hanging on. Brilliant piece of driving, and we've seen that throughout. Speaking of great driving, Aquilani coming up. He is alongside of Espinlab. No, not going to get it done. Espinlab runs a little wide. Can he hang it in? He does, but Andrew Aquilani all over him. Aquilani now dives to the inside. And not quite there as well, but Espinlab, as a result, we've seen it before, Tom, this little bit of battling. Seth Thomas is starting to drive away.
And Nick is saying is starting to make up room in that Bimmer World gear wrench car number 34 from the back here. A great attack from Andrew Aquilante, and I dare say, if it was anybody else besides Charles Espinlab, Andrew Aquilante would have been through.
Well, I'll tell you what, Andrew Aquilani, that thing has come alive. And with that all-wheel drive, I said it can sometimes be a little bit tougher on tires, but if the track greases up later in a race, that all-wheel drive becomes a huge bonus, and he is extracting everything he can from it. He lost a little bit of ground there after he made that one last lunge, but it's quickly closed back up on the back of Espinlab, and this one is by no means over.
You know, it might be 3 or 4 horsepower as you look at this whole sequence. There is Eric Foss doing a little bit more flat tracking, and Toby Grohovic is able to draw up alongside. This has been a battle at the back that just gets better and better, Greg. Both of them are starting to flat track now.
You saw Grohovic sideways there again, and obviously Foss had just driven by Grohovic into the inner loop, but carried a little bit too much speed. Boy, those two are having I bet you they get out of the cars at the end of this when you can't wipe the grin off their faces, and that was for 10.
Yeah, these guys going at it hammer and tongue. Now, there's Thomas, and followed by the Charles Espinlab car, and then Andrew Aquilante. We're starting to see a little bit more action happening here at Watkins Glen. It's going to be a barn burner right to the finish.
Saw a little bit of brake lockup, and there is an off by the 75 of Foss. He is over the top in this battle. Not much to go. See if he can hang on. We're back at the Toyo Tires Watkins Glen Grand Prix presented by Lala Motorsports. White flag comes out on round 5 for the touring cars, and it has been an incredible duel. Seth Thomas up front. Espinlab right behind in the all-blue tri-point Mazda. Right behind him with a brilliant drive is Andrew Aquilani in the Phoenix Performance Subaru, who, by the way, has set the fastest lap of the race thus far. And not surprisingly, in this charge, twice now, Tom, he has run down Espinlab. He caught him, fell back, and he tries it again. Boy, what a great move. He carried a ton of speed. Now the question is, can he hang on to it? He doesn't have to. He drives right around the outside. Boy, did he get through the S's absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, carrying the power up the hill, it all pays off at the end of the straightaway, but he's got to make it stick now. Staying in front of Charles Espinlab is not going to be easy. Now into this downhill, right-hander, and it carries nothing but momentum. Charles Espinlab is there and ready to strike. Let's take a look from inside Andrew Aquilante's car.
Aquilani heads down into what they call the laces of the boot, and I thought he was a little bit off of the apex, and there was a reason. Espinlab had squeezed his way right back alongside. As a matter of fact, Nick Essayan trying to follow through. Boy, that's a pattern we've seen before. Not quite close enough. The door gets slammed by Aquilani, but nonetheless, some awesome racing here to try and determine the final 2 spots of this podium.
And now Seth Thomas just has to keep his eyes ahead. What he's got to do is reach up with his right hand, grab that rear view mirror, rip it off the windshield, and if Charles Espinlab tries to get by, he's got to throw that mirror at Charles Espinlab.
Absolutely, and that's the best defense sometimes, is a good offense. Just put your head down and drive. Don't worry about what's behind you. And after that last little bit of a lunge, you can see now that Espinlab has got himself a little bit of breathing room. I mean a little bit. 3 car lengths instead of 1 is all we're talking. Boy, just lets that car float over the curb, trying to carry every ounce of motivation. Seth Thomas out of the last turn from his first pole to his second career win, second of the season. And there's the salute, the American flag on Independence Day. So much riding for these Bimmer World gear wrench boys. We've seen some incredible action, and we go back in the pack. It remains just as fierce and intense. Through the finish line we come once again, and this battling deep in the pack, Tom, superb.
It's just brilliant. Now here comes the characteristic Bimmer World Donuts as they celebrate the 4th of July. Seth Thomas picks up his second win, and the Bimmer World Gear Wrench guys get redemption from that absolutely horrible time here last year.
And for Seth Thomas, Sebring was great, but this is his first win as a dad.
Bimmer World Gear Wrench car number 38, Seth Thomas. Hey, baby.
What's happening, Tom?
That's all right, isn't it, when it all works out that way?
I'll tell you, leading from the start and the Pirelli World gear inch, BMW it performed flawlessly all day long. We got that whole shot just out starting front row, and I'll tell you, it was no looking back from there. But I was a little worried with Charles coming up from behind. He's a great driver. He's taught me a lot throughout the years, and I feel good having led every lap with him behind me. I have to say, this race is it's definitely for my daughter, who was born 7 weeks ago, which is awesome. And I have to give props to the Pirelli World guys, the Gear Inch guys, for giving us the tools to put this car together, the Performance Friction Brakes for performing flawlessly all day long. And also, with it being 4th of July, we definitely have to give thanks to God, thanks to our forefathers, and also thanks to the soldiers who have served for this country and given us the right to be here today.
A lot of emotion from Seth in Victory Circle, and well-earned indeed. And let's take a look at the unofficial results. Thomas Espenlaub, Aquilani with that great drive in the fastest lap, complete the podium. Esayan, his career best finish in 4th, and Petey Cunningham, top Acura in 5th. Take a look at the rest of the lineup. Now, in terms of points, Seth Thomas, in many ways, a winner there as well. Came in 5th in the points championship, but jumps into 3rd behind Jason Saney and Pierre Kleinubing. Things compressing there. In the Manufacturers Championship, the top 3 coming in were covered by 22 points. Now it's only 14. Acura, Mazda, and BMW. It's that close. And speaking of close, the next race coming up in a big hurry at a brand new venue. It is the Audubon Country Club Joliet, just outside of Chicago, Illinois. We'll see you there.